everybody. Welcome back to Wisconsin Weather Experts on this Tuesday. A little muggy outside here in Milwaukee, a little foggy, and we had some decent rain move through early this morning.
We did, and thankfully it was a light rain, so nothing too heavy, but definitely still impacted the morning commute hours because as that added moisture moved in, that fog really thickened for our lakeshore communities. While we did have some of that, we at least didn't have what a different area saw on the waters of Florida, and this was a water spout. Beautiful. Right? Not only do we have that sunset in the background there, but take a look at that video on the right. I mean, it's like translucent in the middle.
That is incredible.
It is. A Fox viewer caught this water spout on camera. Now, it did occur on Monday near the Leesburg, Florida area in Lake County. Thankfully, no damage was reported, and they can develop rather quickly, making it difficult to depict on radar. We know that since we've had them also here in Lake Michigan. They were saying that this actually came from a thunderstorm, which it can, but typically when we get them, we haven't necessarily seen them as much from storms, and the storms usually aren't on the stronger side. But what a sight to see.
It really is incredible, especially, they vary in sizes, as we've talked about. That one was massive and looked very close to whoever was actually taking the video.
I don't know if I'd be that close to it because occasionally when we do talk about those water spouts, they can come on land and then officially turn into a tornado, and still some of those can give at least 60 mile per hour to 80 mile per hour winds, and that can cause damage.
Right, exactly.
So
and
thankfully they were safe.
Yeah, always an incredible sight too. Now this next one is a little bit different, closer to home. This is not a water spout or a land spout even. This is called a dust devil. So this was actually from a viewer out west of Madison in Linden. It is so incredible, and towards the end of this video, it's beginning to fizzle a little bit, but dust devils are kind of fascinating to me. If you were ever a baseball or softball player, you've probably seen at least a small dust devil at times, but they form when there's a strong surface heating taking place. The hot air quickly rises, it starts to spin, and then once the air rises, it cools and descends down from the center of the vortex as the vortex moves over the ground. It picks up whatever is below it, in this case, dust or dirt over that open field, and it does almost look like its own little tornado. But even when it comes to a land spout too, even those still descend from a cloud. So that's how we can really decipher between a land spout or a dust devil. In this case, there were obviously no clouds in the sky, but really cool to see something that big, too.
It's kind of weird, right? When you're noticing what you think would almost look like a land spout, but then you look above it and there's just nothing there.
Right.
And they can't get very high in the sky. I think we're talking about the average heights 50 to 1,000 feet, and they're typically only on the ground for a couple minutes before they start to diffuse out.
And they do bring in some strong wind too. It wasn't that long ago that we even featured a video on this show of someone getting caught up in one of those, and the wind can still be pretty strong. So it's just fascinating to see what the weather can cause even when it's just rising and sinking air.
I agree. Well, and speaking of rising and sinking air, that's what drives our weather patterns, right? The past couple weeks we've been talking about blocking patterns, ridges, troughs. You might hear us talk about it quite often as meteorologists, but meteorologist Tom Wux is here to explain a little more in depth about what they are.
Well, let's take a look at our upcoming weather pattern. You often hear us talk about ridges and troughs on the weather map, right? So let's take you up to about 18,000 feet. In meteorology, this is where we really look for those ridges and troughs. So take a look here. You see this dip in the west. That is a trough of low pressure, typically associated with cooler air and also showers and thunderstorms, or rising air that gives way to showers and thunderstorms. Then you have a ridge of high pressure, and you can see that here over the nation's midsection. That's why we have been warming up here in Wisconsin over the last couple of days. But notice down to the south, you see this little area here. This is a trough of low pressure that moved through the Gulf Coast states, places like Louisiana, over the weekend, and it's spreading some clouds in our direction here. So this is more of a southern trough that continues to move to the northeast, but this trough off to the west, a little more concerning for us later in the week. Let me show you why. So this west coast trough continues to move across the Intermountain West for the middle part of the week, but look what happens by Thursday. Do you see how it kind of tilts a little bit here? That's what we call a negative tilt in meteorology, or a negatively tilted trough. What does that even mean? Well, what that does is that aligns the winds for a more favorable wind shear pattern. I know I'm kind of getting in the weeds here, right? But it's important because that means the winds as you go up become more favorable for the potential for severe thunderstorms. And this is why we've been talking about a risk for severe thunderstorms on Thursday. We often talk about ingredients, right? Different ingredients to get storms to form. This is one of those ingredients. When you get a negatively tilted trough coming in, and that also leads to air converging at the surface and then rising, and that is also what causes showers and thunderstorms. Now, as we go towards Friday, that trough continues to move over us, and it will continue to potentially bring some showers and thunderstorms our way for the end of the week as well. So now let's take a look at the temperatures here as we go through time. Pretty mild throughout the week here. Again, especially away from the lake, it's going to be pretty warm here. And you'll notice on Thursday, we even get just a little bit warmer out ahead of that cold front. So now we're also talking about more ingredients, right? A warm, more humid environment that can help to feed those thunderstorms as they develop, and the cold front can help to lift the air up as well. So those are more ingredients that we are watching. Now, Friday is somewhat interesting from a temperature standpoint. I think we're still going to be somewhat warm here in southeastern Wisconsin, but the higher you go up, especially at about 18,000 feet, the air is going to get pretty cold. So if we're warm at the surface and it's cold at 18,000 feet, that creates an unstable atmosphere and could generate a few showers and thunderstorms on Friday. Then we cool down a bit as we head towards the weekend, but you'll notice the warmer air back off to the southwest. That's going to lead to kind of a roller coaster ride pattern of weather here as we get closer to Memorial Day. So again, it all has to do with the troughs and the ridges, and this is one of the many ingredients that we look for in meteorology.
A good basic lesson out there when it comes to meteorology.
And what people don't understand too is we look at this every single day.
Every day.
Because that's really going to tell us where are these low pressure systems, these high pressure systems, where are areas maybe seeing rain for days on end versus areas that aren't. This all drives our weather daily.
It does. It's part of our daily routine, to say the very least. And we're just going to add to that when it comes to our weather here locally as well as across the region. We're going to start things off down south in Beloit. I have been looking at this camera for the last couple of hours, more so because they've got sunshine and I'm a little jealous, but notice some of those puffy cumulus clouds. It's still possible we end up seeing a few pop-ups from time to time, pop-up showers or pop-up thunderstorms, primarily in this area and out towards the west throughout the rest of the afternoon. So again, you can tell because of some of these bigger, puffier clouds, they're not towering just yet, but there is the chance for a few pop-up storms going forward today, once again in these areas. Now this is satellite and radar looped over the last 6 hours. I kind of drew it out a little bit, more so to show how some of the rain originated around our area earlier this morning, and now it's primarily out towards the west, impacting south central portions of Wisconsin. It is just rain at the moment, and what we had here in southeastern parts of the state earlier this morning was very light, but it's going to continue to make its way westward. Once again, this is more of that retrograding system, and we're on the far northwestern edge of this storm system anyways. The bulk of the rain, the soaking rain that's been falling for days, still out east. There's still sunshine out west for the central U.S., even up towards the northern plains, dealing with potentially record heat today, and they've had a string of sunny and very warm conditions over the last week. And then a couple more disturbances out west, which we will eventually see moving our way for Thursday. So especially Thursday evening across Wisconsin, we are still looking at the potential for some severe weather as a cold front makes its way on through. Let's start out east, though, because with that cutoff upper level low pressure system that's been meandering just around the same area out east. Remember, cutoff low pressures are cut off from the main jet stream, so they don't move much and they can kind of wiggle back and forth from west to east. But it is producing heavy rainfall in the same spots for multiple days, so there are still flood headlines you can see across the east, especially across Virginia as well as North Carolina. Radar estimated rainfall, you're seeing a lot of yellows, a lot of reds and oranges. Estimates are over 4 inches in portions of North Carolina, and that's over the last 48 hours. So again, this has been an ongoing situation for some of these East Coast states just because of this very slow-moving storm system that we're just getting in on the very edge of today. Let's check in with Sky Vision. So for the rest of today across the state, more of that statewide view for you here, you can see some of those showers, maybe a rumble of thunder this afternoon, still kind of popping, but more so just west of our area. I think the lake breeze will help us out a little bit here, pushing most of that activity then off towards the west. Foggy conditions for lakeshore communities, maybe even extending out towards the west by Wednesday morning. That will improve. We'll see some sunshine then Wednesday afternoon, and northern and western portions of the state could see a few more showers and thunderstorms. Here in the east, Wednesday will likely be a dry day for us. Then all eyes on Thursday. So we are pausing this Thursday morning. Could start to see a first batch of thunderstorm activity out west Minnesota, maybe Iowa, but notice how at least this run of this model fizzles that first batch out. We could stay dry the majority of Thursday until Thursday evening when we see the cold front. And then there's the possibility we see yet another line of thunderstorms developing, and those could certainly be strong or severe as they roll through our area closer to dinner time and shortly after. It's still a few days away. The storm system is still coming together, so something we will monitor for now. But we do have a threat from the Storm Prediction Center for some severe weather here locally on Thursday. And even Wednesday, there is a severe threat out west. So we already know this is going to be a stronger storm, and we'll be able to watch it as it makes its way eastward. But there is a severe threat tomorrow for parts of the Dakotas, Minnesota, down into Nebraska. And then skipping ahead to Thursday, you can see the spots that are under that level 2, which is that slight risk in yellow: Wisconsin, the bulk of Michigan State, Ohio, Indiana, and even northern Illinois. Now let's talk temperatures. Now, yesterday was a warm day in southeast Wisconsin and across the entire state. There were a lot of 80s. Now, north and west, it's still going to be another warm day today. High temperatures likely in the 80s. But because we've got some of that cloud cover and fog lakeside and down towards the south, will be slightly cooler, even near 80 still near Madison, but lakeshore communities likely a mixture of middle, maybe upper 60s, and then inland areas just away from the lake, maybe some low to mid 70s. So not the 80s that we had yesterday. It is going to be humid though, so expect a pretty muggy stretch of weather today, tomorrow, and even into Thursday. On a national view, you can see how many spots once again across the central U.S. that are going to be warm and nearing record high temperatures. Specifically, the southern plains, parts of Texas could see some of the warmest air, of course, of this season, but ever recorded during the month of May. These are some of the records for today, so likely falling short up towards the north where forecast highs are in the 80s, but look at down towards the south. So records are in the low 90s. They're expecting across a good chunk of the state of Texas triple-digit heat. In fact, look at central and southern Texas under a heat advisory, and that is for temperatures in the 100s, and not just today, all the way through Thursday. So they're looking at a 3-day span of triple-digit heat. And as we talked about, some of these not only going to be daily record highs for each one of those days, especially down towards the south, but could be some of the warmest air they've ever recorded during the month of May. So pretty incredible to see some of the heat that is ongoing across portions of, not just the full central U.S., but especially down towards the southern plains across Texas. So a lot going on, I'd say, across the U.S. right now between the flooding rainfall out east, the heat down south, and here we're kind of in a waiting period right now, but watching Thursday's chance for severe weather.
Yeah, well, and with the heat, what do people usually do here? we go down to the lake.
Exactly.
We like to take a dip, but some of the Great Lakes are struggling with some things right now. They have an invasive species of carp. While the Great Lakes are used as a shipping avenue, source of drinking water, recreational use such as fishing and swimming, every year invasive carp are impacting every state that borders the lakes, including Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and of course, Wisconsin. The rapidly spreading species reduce water quality and lower native fish populations, which poses a threat to the Great Lakes fishing, boating, recreation, and tourism. The federal government says it's now going to help Illinois keep invasive carp out of Lake Michigan. As a memo, they say that they're committed to protecting the lakes. The project aims to help implement deterrent technologies at the Brandon Road Lock and Dam in Joliet, Illinois.
Oh, I know where that's at.
There you go. So that's going to prevent the carp from reaching the Great Lakes because they travel up from the south and come north.
Yep.
So while they're moving in different ways, we hope that this will actually help limit some of the population from continuing to move north.
And you know, this is invasive species. I mean, they're everywhere. Just a couple days ago or late last week, we talked about this, a different type of fish, but impacting, or clams actually, I think, impacting a lake in California. You know, we talk about the plants and how invasive they can be. It is something that needs to be controlled in specific spots. So this is good that there's going to at least be some help for our beautiful lakes.
I mean, and some of these fish, they can grow up to 100 pounds.
Yeah,
so
huge.
Large, not a good thing. Obviously, I've seen them jump out of the water. We don't need them here. So at least they're starting to take some action to help us out.
All right, great news there. Okay, well, we're 16 minutes in. We have talked a lot. Live view in Milwaukee. We have a lot of exciting stuff to talk about coming up as well, including some great news for an Olympian. You'll want to stick around for that. Welcome back, everybody. It's been a fun start to the show, but you know, we have talked the last couple of days with all of the warmth, the wind, the dry conditions out west about how the fire danger, unfortunately, has been creeping back into the Midwest and Wisconsin as well.
It has, and you've really been highlighting that across the Midwest stuff the past few days, and unfortunately, that did impact some areas in Wisconsin here locally yesterday. It was a picture, in fact, that we're going to show. Let's get it up here.
Yeah, sure. This is from Juneau County here shortly.
Juneau County. Here we go. We'll
There we
update
go
that.
for you there.
That's from Juneau County, and this fire actually was something that the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, fire crews, and other local agencies worked really hard to control for what's being called the warthog fire in Juneau County. The fire burned roughly 80 acres of land and forced people in almost 40 homes to evacuate. Now, officials say the fire did originate in the town of Cutler, but they're still unsure of what the exact cause of it was, so that's under investigation.
Okay.
Thankfully, the fire was contained and people could return safely to their homes with no injuries reported. Contributing factors, as Stephanie mentioned, the warm temperatures, very low relative humidity, and windy conditions. And this is the current risk that we have from the Wisconsin Department. And that's really looking to be a big concern still, as we have more than half the state under very high to extreme fire conditions, Stephanie.
Right, and I know we saw a little bit of light rain, but remember, it was light. It's going to dry out really quickly because we've had now a 7-day stretch of dry weather, and we don't have the wind today, which is good news.
Yes.
Relative humidity may be a little bit higher down south. That's not the story up towards the north, though. It's sunny in northern Wisconsin right now.
Yeah, and if you step out here locally, you may have noticed this morning it was muggy.
Yeah.
We're going to have those muggy conditions the next couple of days, so that moisture is going to be contained more to southern portions of the state, as you mentioned. Further north, we're still dealing with a lot of dry conditions, and even with the chance of showers and storms in the forecast in central and northern portions of Wisconsin the next couple of days, as you mentioned, it's just going to dry out quickly, and the winds look to pick back up by the end of the week, so we'll have to be very cautious as we look through the rest of the week in terms of igniting any kind of fires.
Right, exactly.
Well, speaking of fires, we have a little bit of a different story here. If you remember us covering the Palisades fires in California, it was one of more than a dozen destructive wildfires that broke out around the Los Angeles, California area in January. It destroyed more than 18,000 structures and claimed the lives of at least 30 people. An Olympic swimmer, Gary Hall Jr., was one of those impacted by the catastrophic wildfires. He lost 10 Olympic medals in the blaze. I can't even imagine.
No.
Now, those medals, which you can see in a picture here, were burned, especially the one in the middle. The International Olympic Committee presented him, though, with replica medals of the ones that he lost. So the International Olympic Committee is known to provide replica medals under strict circumstances, such as if the originals were lost in a natural disaster, such as this one. So he is very lucky to get those. Of course, in 2028, the Olympic Games will be held in Los Angeles, and I'm sure they're trying to do a lot to recover from some of the fires that they've been dealing with. But what a lucky person. I mean, not only is it a once-in-a-lifetime thing to win those medals, but then to get them replaced, I mean, he's got to be so ecstatic just to have them back in his collection.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad there was at least some type of positive spin on what has, you know, just been such devastation, not only for him, but for so many people.
Absolutely.
So hopefully those are in a brand new frame in a nice new spot. Okay, well, we are now going to switch gears and talk about volcanoes. We've talked about this one before. Hawaii's Kilauea volcano. It erupted again. This is the volcano's 21st eruption since December. A fountain of lava, as you can see there, launched hundreds of feet into the air. Now, according to the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory, the lava reached 500 feet and was feeding flows that were oozing out into the crater floor. According to officials, the eruption occurred within a closed area of the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, so thankfully no threat there. The primary concern is the high levels, though, of volcanic gas. You know, they go hand in hand. That can impact areas downwind.
I can't believe it's erupted so many times,
Yeah.
but thankfully within a closed area of the park, as you mentioned. It just goes to show that, again, while the lava can be really dangerous in terms of the heat, but that also puts those dangerous gases in the air, which can harm us as humans if we breathe it in. So always looking from a distance.
Yes, absolutely.
A little bit better. Well, one thing you might want to be looking at from a distance too, cicadas. And while we might not be dealing with them here, we had them last year. Spring, they're allowing them to emerge in portions of the East Coast. Broad 14, which has spent 17 years underground, are expected to start buzzing in the upcoming weeks. They will be popping around mid-May, and they'll be around for a few weeks before dying off. States like Tennessee, Kentucky are expected to see the largest emergence, while other areas like Indiana, Ohio, Virginia, Pennsylvania, they could have smaller pockets of those cicadas emerging.
And main takeaway, Wisconsin wasn't part of that.
Yeah.
So there you go. Already better than last year, right? All right, live look outside of the Milwaukee Airport, Mitchell International. We have a little bit more to chat about. We'll see you after the break. Hi again, everybody. Welcome back to Wisconsin Weather Experts. This is a cute story for you here involving a corgi, a police corgi, that is. So a thief is caught red-handed, but it's probably not someone you'd expect. Take a look there. Did you see it? The country's first corgi police dog has caused a stir after snatching a sausage from a child while on duty. So the dog is trained to detect explosives and other harmful materials with his keen sense of smell. After this video went viral, the police officers, the corgi, did go to the school of this child with an apology to ask for forgiveness, some
I
gift.
know it's probably not an explosive. Maybe you just want a little snack.
Yeah.
Call it exercise, makes you hungry.
They are still dogs, right?
I know.
Very cute. Well, thanks for joining us today. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. We'll see you back here at noon tomorrow.